Hi there, everyone, and thanks for joining us this afternoon. My name is Jordan Pruszinski, and I serve as the Director of Membership with Good Business Colorado. Good Business Colorado is a statewide nonpartisan business association of over 230 values-driven business owners who are committed to building a prosperous, equitable, and sustainable Colorado. Our members know that they have a role in shaping public policy that impacts our communities and our businesses. We challenge the lines of partisanship and lead with our values. Today, we're going to be joined by Ashlee Faulkner, President of Journey Colorado. Before we kick off today's session, I'd like to say a huge thank you to all of our co-sponsors around this state: Adelante Community Development, Colorado Black Chamber of Commerce, Colorado LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce, the Center for Community Wealth Building, Downtown Grand Junction, Latino Chamber of Commerce of Pueblo, Rocky Mountain Employee Ownership Center, and SistaBiz Global Network. Thank you so very much. We'd also like to thank the Bell Policy Center and Small Business Majority for co-hosting with us today as well. After today's Q&A, you'll receive an email with a feedback form and more information about each of our co-sponsors. For now, I'll go ahead and pass it on to Tyler with Small Business Majority.
Hi, this is Tyler Jekyll. I'm actually, I wish I was with the Small Business,
I'm sorry,
but I'm with the Bell Policy Center. No worries, it's Monday, Monday in COVID land. And the Bell Policy Center is a policy research and advocacy organization focused on economic mobility for all Coloradans. And just so people know, if you want to go to our website, bellpolicy.org, we've created a hub that has information about kind of what's happening at both the state and federal level related to responses, but really excited to be a part of this. And then now I'll send it over to our partners at Small Business Majority.
Thanks, Tyler. Hey, y'all, it's Lindsay Vigoda. I'm the Colorado Outreach Manager for Small Business Majority. Small Business Majority is a small business education and advocacy organization. We're run and founded by small businesses, and we've been in business since 2005. We're a national nonprofit with offices all across the nation, including DC, California, Colorado, Virginia, and Maryland, and Illinois. And we focus on top-line issues for small businesses, including access to healthcare, retirement, health, access to capital, and taxes, and way more. We've been very busy working with the Bell Policy Center and Good Business Colorado, as well as lots of national partnerships during COVID. And so if you're interested in learning more, check out our resource hub at venturize.org or smallbusinessmajority.org. And then I will pass it over to Karen at Good Business Colorado.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us on this Monday. Hope everybody is staying well and healthy out there. My name is Karen Moldovan. I'm the Director of Policy at Good Business Colorado. So I work with Jordan and everybody who else was on this webinar and this team. And I'm just really excited to introduce folks to Ashlee Faulkner and turn it over to her. We have been getting some information and guidance from Journey, and just been thinking a lot about how many human resources, accounting, tax implications there are that are currently going on right now. That's really just sort of thrown everybody for a loop, and a lot of scrambling that small businesses are really having to do to keep up. So that's why we're hosting these webinar series, and excited for Ashlee to just kind of walk through what Journey has been learning and working on. So just so folks know, she is one of Journey's shareholders for Journey's headquarters and is the President of Business Development for Colorado. Journey is a Good Business Colorado member, and we thought Ashlee was the perfect fit for this because she's really passionate about supporting small local businesses, and that's something that we're all really united in. So I'm just going to kick it over to her. She's going to walk us through some of this content, and I think as she'll share, it is ever evolving and changing, not always day to day, but hour by hour. So we're all sort of doing our best to keep up. And then our Executive Director, Deborah Brown at Good Business Colorado, will close us out right at 4. So we'll turn it over to Ashlee.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having us on. We are thrilled to be able to partner with you guys in providing some information. So I do appreciate you guys having us on and asking us to help you out. So again, I am Ashlee Faulkner, President of Journey Colorado. We are a small business ourselves, locally owned and operated. So, you know, we've obviously had just a slew of questions, clients asking us, you know, how this works, where do we go? These are uncharted waters for all of us. So I think it's important to kind of be able to understand what's going on, but also what options are out there for small business, because this is definitely something that's hitting us a lot harder than others. So we'll kind of jump into things here. I do want to give a disclaimer for everybody watching. This is not legal or tax advice. I am not an attorney. I'm not a tax accountant. We are in payroll, which is just as fun, but we cannot give advice pertaining, any information pertaining to your company necessarily. So if you do have specific questions, we do encourage you to reach out to your CPA, legal counsel, or your bank, as a lot of us are learning. They are a great resource as well right now. So we're going to go through the 5 programs right now that we are seeing a lot of traction in. The Families First Coronavirus Response Act obviously is a big one. The PPP, Payroll Protection or Paycheck Protection Program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, Employee Retention Credit, and Payroll Tax Deferral. So a lot of these, there's a lot of questions surrounding it. We kind of pulled some resources from some FAQs that we've done, and then just different sources as well. So we'll go through all of these in a little more detail. So the FFCRA, Families First Coronavirus Response Act, what can it be used for? So this is the question we get for all of these programs right now, is what can I use this program for? What can I use the funding for? What can I use my tax deferral for? So this is to help pay for COVID-19 related sick and family leave pay obligations. It is up to 2 weeks, and we will go, again, these are just highlights. We will go in depth for all of these. It is up to 2 weeks or 80 hours per employee for sick leave, and up to $10,000 per employee for family leave. The covered period is April 1st of 2020 to December 31st of 2020. And who is eligible? So businesses with no more than 500 employees are eligible. Independent contractors are not eligible for this one. And let me move my little window here. So for the 2 weeks, everybody starts to ask, what does this look like? What does this mean? How do I know, what these hours are, essentially? So it's 2 weeks or up to 80 hours of paid sick leave at the employee's regular rate of pay, where the employee is unable to work because of either the employee is quarantined or experiencing COVID-19 symptoms and is seeking medical diagnosis, or 2 weeks up to 80 hours of paid sick leave at 2/3 the employee's regular rate of pay. And this is if the employee is unable to work because of the need for childcare for an individual who, let's say their childcare provider is closed, their school is closed, and this is under the age of 18. If they have no care and you have to step in and be that caretaker, then it is 2/3 of the employee's regular rate of pay. A covered employer must provide this to any employees that have been with you for 30 days. So if you have an employee that hit 31, 32, they're on day 35, you must provide this benefit to employees. There is up to an additional 10 weeks of paid expanded family and medical leave at 2/3 the employee's regular rate of pay, where an employee is unable to work due to the need to care for that child who is unable to attend school. Their provider's closed, school's closed, whatever the case may be. Effective date. So everybody's been asking, when did this go into effect? When does this start? So we want to be very clear on the effective dates. This did go into effect as of April 1st, 2020, and it will apply to leave taken between April 1st and December 31st of this year, 2020. Another question that comes up a lot for us, how do I count hours worked by a part-time employee? I know we've got tons of clients that have part-time employees. We've got part-time employees. And the question arises all the time, how do I count for those hours? A part-time employee is entitled to leave for his or her average number of hours worked in a 2-week period. So to calculate that, you just take the hours of leave based on the number of hours the employee is normally scheduled to work. The PPP, everybody I'm sure is getting a lot of information, either Googling information, hearing the information on the news. This is most certainly a very hot topic right now. The payroll protection program, as most have probably learned, is exhausted at this point. They are no longer taking new applications. We've got clients that did get funding. We've got clients that did not get funding. And we've got clients that still have not heard if they've been funded. So if you have specific questions around your loan or how you can get it at this point, that is the $1 million question. How can we get it? We're really hoping that there is some more funds that are released for this, because it was such a big program for people. But it can be used for payroll, benefits, rent, mortgage interest, utilities, and then any interest on any other debt obligations. How much can everybody get, right? So it's 250% of your average monthly defined payroll costs and no more than $10 million. Up to 8 weeks of it will be forgiven. Remainder becomes a loan with very low interest. Coverage period is 2/15 of 2020 through 6/30 of 2020. Businesses with no more than 500 employees, sole proprietors, and independent contractors, as well as nonprofits, are eligible. You have to be really careful with what programs you're trying to pair together. We've got a lot of clients that call in and say, hey, I want to apply for, the tax deferral and the PPP. I want to, I want to try and combine some of these to get the max benefit and resource. And you just simply cannot. Everybody's got to have a fair shot at things, but these are not programs that you can easily put together. So in going through this, we're hoping that it does kind of provide a little bit more guidance as far as what's out there, so that you can figure out what is best for your business. And then, as most people know and are aware, this is done through your bank. An SBA lender can help you out with that. So does it cover, some questions we get for this one, does it cover paid sick leave? Yes. The short answer is yes, it does. PPP loans cover payroll costs, including costs to employee vacation, parental, family, medical, and sick leave. However, the CARES Act does exclude qualified sick and family leave wages. And you can find a lot more of the information pertaining to what this can be used for in the articles that were published. What time period should borrowers use to determine their number of employees and payroll costs to calculate their maximum loan amount? So in general, borrowers can calculate their aggregate payroll costs using data either from the previous 12 months or from a calendar year, or from calendar year 2019. Clients that use a payroll service, we're able to get you some data. At Journey, we've been able to get our clients, and if any of you are clients, you'll be very familiar with reports that were provided for PPP, that we're able to give you the exact date ranges that they have requested and are asking for. And so that's what's used to determine what you get, what your cost should be. Ours were in an Excel format, which is really great because, there's a lot of things that we may not have as far as payroll costs go. And I know banks were able to throw that into our Excel spreadsheets and get that submitted for our clients. So again, this is another, it really does drive back to your payroll provider and what kind of information they can pull for you, and then your bank as well to see, what you're including in your loan application. And like I mentioned earlier, they are unable to accept any new loans as of right now. So if you're wondering, if that's your question that you want to know when you can get your PPP application in, that's the $1 million question. So we just don't know yet when funds will be available again. So keep checking. I know the news has been hit and miss with information, but there are some resources at the end of the slideshow that'll help you with where you can check that. So economic injury disaster loan. This can be used for paid sick leave, payroll, materials, rent, mortgage. It's up to $2 million. The coverage period is 1/31 of 2020 to 12/31 of 2020. Businesses with no more than 500 employees, sole proprietor, independent contractors, and private nonprofits are eligible. Businesses can apply for the EIDL and PPP as long as the money is used for different purposes. Review this with your bank. This is very important. And again, this is done through the SBA. Couple questions that come up with this one. Do I qualify? How do I even know? And I get it. There are so many different things. None of us really know what we should even be doing, which is again, why you should definitely check with your accountant in your bank to see what's best for your business needs. But the SBA will require that you meet certain criteria when applying for some of these loans. So credit history, repayment ability, meet the definition of a small business, and then, be able to prove that there is economic injury. What can I use the loan for? It can be used for working capital expenses, including rent, payroll, utilities, health insurance premiums. It cannot be used to refinance old debt, dividends or distributions to members of shareholders, or to pay tax penalties. ERC, Employee Retention Credit. So these are some bigger ones that have come out. What can it be used for? This is the $1 million question for this one. What do I get to use this for? This is for to help offset payroll taxes. It's up to 50% of up to $10,000 in qualified wages for a max credit of $5,000 per employee. Covered period, any wages paid after 3/12. Now, this is another one we've heard the date is 3/13. Given our experience, we have left it at 3/12. It's a day off. So if any of you watching know that it's 3/13, I understand this again is one of those that changes quite often. So wages paid 3/12, 3/13, and before 1/1 of 2021. Who's eligible? So these businesses that were shut down by government, so anybody mandated to shut down and that have seen a significant reduction in gross receipts. We're going to go through some examples of this just so everybody is kind of on the same page with how this works. But they want to see a 50% drop or more in revenue in the quarter. So that's why this is important. Restaurants is our example, because that is just a huge one that's been hit for sure. ERC and PPP cannot be combined. So again, going back to what I was saying on the PPP slide, there's so many of these things that people are just not sure, right? I don't know what to do. I don't know what's in the best interest of my company. I don't know if I should be applying for PPP or if I should be doing the ERC. So again, we get it. We understand it's, I wish we had the magic answer for you, but most certainly get in touch with your bank and your accountant to see what is the best option for your business. And this one's nice. It does apply immediately. So this can be used immediately. We're seeing clients use it right now on our side. So how does this work? So you can claim your credit immediately by reducing payroll taxes sent into the IRS. If you do not use a payroll company, I know that this can be tricky because you're kind of playing with fire. Essentially, you don't know how to manage it. You don't know how to get it in. When do you do it? How do you do it? So, most certainly if you have a payroll company, reach out to them because that's going to be the best. If you're not using a payroll company, I would strongly suggest at least trying to contact somebody that you're comfortable with contacting. We will talk to anybody. We do not charge for emails. We do not charge for phone calls. You can be a client. You cannot be a client. We will talk to you. We will, try to help you kind of understand as much as we possibly can for your situation. If your credits exceed payroll taxes, then you can request a direct refund from the IRS. That is done directly through them. And again, you should compare this with the PPP, not now because obviously PPP funding has been put on hold, but it is a good one to definitely compare to see which is going to be more lucrative for your business specifically. What is it? The Employee Retention Credit is a fully refundable tax credit for employers equal to 50% of qualified wages. Including qualified health plan expenses. So that's another big question we get with this is, does my health plan expense qualify in this? And yes, it absolutely does. The Employee Retention Credit applies to qualified wages paid after March 12th and before January 1st of 2021. So after March 12th of 2020 and before January 1 of 2021. The maximum amount of qualified wages taken into account with respect to each employee for all calendar quarters is $10,000. So the maximum credit for an eligible employer for qualified wages to be paid to any employee is $5,000. Again, we'll go over some examples here. Who is an eligible employer? Eligible employers for the purpose of the employee retention credit are those that carry on a trade, a business, or a business during the calendar year of 2020, including a tax-exempt organization that either fully or partially suspends operation during any calendar quarter in 2020. So that's the biggest part of this. You may not have seen a hit now, but maybe you're going to see a hit in third quarter or maybe in fourth quarter. So that's what's kind of nice about this, is it is during any calendar quarter in 2020. Again, that's if the government has shut you down and you don't have any other options at that point. And then anybody that experiences a significant decline in gross receipts during the calendar quarter. How to qualify as an eligible employer. So fully or partially suspended business operations during the quarter. You've experienced, again, that 50% drop in gross receipts. And so here's where our example comes in with the restaurant industry, because this is where we've seen such a big hit, obviously, first and foremost and most recently. So if you own a restaurant that is ordered to close to sit down customers. So you have ABC restaurant, a lot of your business is people that come in and sit down and eat. And you are not allowed to continue, but you are allowed to continue for carry out. So a lot of our clients are doing carry out, they're doing curbside pickup, drive-through or delivery. That qualifies you for this credit based on a coronavirus related partial shutdown. So it cannot be that, for whatever other reason you were shut down, it has to be COVID-19 related. Then you are qualified for any quarter during which the government order applied, up to 4 quarters in 2020. It doesn't last that long. So a couple questions that come up. What is a significant decline in gross receipts? A significant decline in gross receipts begins with the first quarter in which any employer's gross receipts for a calendar quarter in 2020 are less than 50% of its gross receipts for the same calendar quarter in 2019. So it does give an example down there. I won't bore you all with reading it out loud. You can kind of see it, but basically what it's saying is if your gross receipts in quarter one are significantly lower, so 50% or more lower than they were in 2019, this qualifies you for this credit. So I always tell our client, unfortunately, we don't know, even as a payroll company, we don't know what your gross amounts are that you're bringing in. We know what you're paying out on payroll. So this is definitely something to sit down and go through your books and look to see that you've had that 50% drop. I can promise you, anybody that's been shut down, even if you're still trying to accommodate some curbside stuff, you've probably experienced that. So it's definitely something I would suggest looking into if you haven't already. The payroll tax deferral. So this is another one that we're getting a lot of questions. Actually, and I do have to backtrack there. We had a lot of clients that called in the very beginning and said, I'm not paying my tax payments. I'm putting all of that on hold. I heard the government's going to do this, that, or the other. So we always want to tell you, make sure you reach out to your payroll company. Make sure you reach out and are able to ask the correct questions that you should to make sure that you're doing this correctly. Because, we've heard some people say, I'm just simply not going to pay because they're not going to hit me with a penalty. And while we hope that that's true, we don't know for sure. So it can be used to defer your tax payments to help manage cash flow. It's only applied to the employer Social Security. So this is why I say, don't just not pay your taxes. Don't just stop sending in your payroll taxes. This is only applied to the employer's Social Security. Deposits, what period is covered? Deposits due for the period of 3/27/2020 through 12/31/2020. So March 27th for the remainder of the year. This is eligible to any business. There are no exclusions that we know of. If that has changed, most certainly we will update everything, but as of right now, every business is eligible. Again, this cannot be combined with the PPP by any means. So if you're already on the PPP route, don't stop paying your taxes. And then how do we apply? So there really is no apply. There's no process in which one needs to go through to apply for this. You just need to let your payroll company know. So again, if you're doing your own payroll, if you're QuickBooks, if you're whatever the case may be, just make sure you're doing this correctly and asking the correct questions just to make sure that this is being done correctly. And this also is immediate. Questions that come up with this: what deposits and payments of employment taxes are employers entitled to defer? Again, this is just the employer's portion of Social Security. This is no other tax that you can defer. It's just the employer's portion of your Social Security taxes. Which employers may defer deposits and payments? All of them. Everybody can. This is, again, this is not subject to you know, one business over another. However, employers that receive a loan under the SBA, so the PPP, they may not defer the deposits and payment of the employer's share. So just, again, make sure that you're very certain what your, what loan you have applied for. If you've gotten your PPP funds, if you've received that, you cannot defer your tax payments. So just be sure that you're paying attention to that as best you can. So some good resources. Again, even if you're not, this is not a pitch to sell payroll to anybody by any means. We just have developed a really cool resource on our website. So journeypayroll.com is where you can go. We have a COVID-19 Business Center. The COVID-19 Business Center has everything and anything. We've got Q&As, we've got other resources available from attorneys that we've been in constant contact with, accountants that we've been in contact with, really anybody who's been able to help provide us some information. It's all there on the Business Center webpage. We also are pushing out blogs all the time. This is something that we also post on our website. So again, you don't have to be a client of Journey to check out this information. But the blogs have been super helpful for people just to kind of understand what's been changed. As you all can imagine, I'm sure everybody's going through it on their end in some form or fashion, but we can spend hours working on something, get it out there, and the next day it's changed or it's been adjusted. And every time that happens, we have to get new communication out to everybody as well. So just be mindful that it is always changing, and it's great to always check that. And then we have, again, our FAQ page. So we've got a lot of really great resources there. Telework has been huge lately. So we've got, you know, a lot of updates to labor law posters that, you know, people are asking, hey, I've got, you know, most of my staff working from home. So how do I work this? How do I manage this? And so there's a resource on the website that you can actually send them the PDF of what they need to have if they're telework employees, so that you can get them the information that they need to have in front of them at all times. So it's great to check those resources as well. And then my contact info is up on this screen as well. And like I mentioned, this is not, most certainly not a pitch to anybody to sign up for our payroll services. This is just information. We appreciate Good Business Colorado and kind of allowing us to help bridge some gaps or get some information out there. And so if people have specific questions, and I will take questions here in a minute, but if you do, you know, want to talk through some things that is specific to your business, obviously I would do the best I can with any information I'm given to give you guys as much resource as possible. If somebody just wants to talk through, you know, how something works, we're happy to do that as well. So I'll leave that up on the screen while we take some questions here. Maybe.
Thank you so much, Ashlee. And just while we're getting queued up for questions, just so folks know, you should all have a chat box feature within Zoom. So feel free to type in a question. So we'll, you know, get to what we can. We do have everybody's line muted, so we're hopeful folks will use this chat box.
Okay, so one of the questions was, so if we defer, we just need to keep really good records on what we are not paying, correct? Yeah, that's a great question. And yes, I always tell people, and I have been telling people since the beginning of this, it is most certainly in your best interest to keep great records of everything. We have heard, this kind of goes to another question we get asked quite often as well. For my PPP funds, do I need to keep track of what that's going to? Do I need to make sure that you know, I'm tracking expenses being paid out, and yes, I'm covering the correct expenses with this loan. differing answers, right? Everybody's going to have their own opinion on this from what they hear and what they've picked up. My answer is yes, keep great records. Nobody gets in trouble for keeping good records. So keep as great of records as you possibly can. So yes, anything you're not paying, keep track of it. If you're using a payroll company, they should be able to keep track of that as well, because we have great record on that. So yes, that is correct. Keep great records for sure. Let's see. I have been approved for the PPP loan, but I just included the payroll expenses times 2.5. Can I get more? Oof. So the question was, can I get more to include our rent? This is a great question for your bank, for sure. Reach out to your bank. Again, because they've capped everything at this point, you're pretty lucky to have received funds. But to go back and ask your bank how they're doing that. I have not heard that yet. And I'm sorry that they didn't have that included in the beginning too, because that's most certainly, rent was most certainly one of those big ticket items in there. So I would reach out to your bank directly and ask them what the process is for that, for sure. Copies of the presentation being sent. Karen, I believe this is going out.
Yes, absolutely. Folks will get a copy of this as well as the link to the recording if you want to fast forward and hear a certain component talked about again.
Or go back. Yep, perfect. I got my PPP. What QuickBooks transactions do I need to record? Record anything you're paying out. Record wages, record bonuses, record. We actually just had a client this morning call in and say, I'm paying, an X amount of bonus to somebody that's continuing to work with me, right? That's going to come back. I had to furlough them, but they're going to come back. So I'm giving them X bonus. But those that aren't coming back for their own reasons, whatever that may be, I'm still giving them a bonus. Everything. You need to record everything that you're paying out of it. So QuickBooks, I'm not as familiar with QuickBooks, but just make sure you're recording anything paid out that is specific to those related expenses in the PPP. Oh, Jordan answered that one. Can you use the retention credit and deferred payment while you wait for the PPP? No. So the question was, can you use retention credit and deferred payments while you wait for the PPP? Our understanding at this point is that no, you cannot. If you've applied for that PPP, you're not supposed to be. And the reason being, if you defer tax payments at this point and then don't get funded, your tax payments are late. I don't know what they're doing right now to manage that, if they're forgiving penalties and interest on those, or if they're going to continue forward with that. So this is where it just gets super, super tricky. I can't give you that advice not to pay it, but if you have a payroll company, and maybe you could ask them as well what they're seeing across the board. But anybody who's waiting for their PPP money on our side, we are not suggesting that they do any tax deferral or the retention credit at all. Great question though. Has anyone on the call received EILD funds yet? And if so, how much? It's a great question. I actually don't know the answer to that. And let me see if there's any more questions in regards to that.
Yeah, and if folks who are listening in, if you have applied for the EIDL loan, the economic injury disaster loan, if you want to type in the chat box your experience, if you've received it or not at this point, then I think that's great information for us to have. I mean, my understanding, what we've been hearing is that those loans are extremely delayed and they're taking a lot of time for the SBA to process. But it looks like one person is saying that they did receive their EIDL loan. They applied on March 29th, received it on the 14th. Also applied for PPP. It was accepted, but not funded. So I think folks are kind of a little bit in this waiting game and queue with both of them to see. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much. We actually, I had 2 clients this morning let us know that they got word that they were accepted, but they hadn't seen their funds either. By the time last week, and for the experience that we had on our side, we had clients that found out Monday, I think, that they were approved, and by Wednesday got their funds. So I would just say, because it is a question that's come up a couple times here, I would just say, really watch. You can ask your bank too if, how long the actual funding takes to get to your account. To piggyback off of that, another question that we've received a bunch as well on our side is, do I have to set up a separate bank account for this in order to track it? And you don't. I don't know. We've talked to our bank in length about this, and they're not requiring that a separate bank account be set up. Again, it just goes back to really tracking those funds, what those funds are being used for, and making sure that you have good record for that. And as far as QuickBooks goes, I don't know how to book that. I am not a QuickBooks pro by any means. So if you have an accountant that you work with that might be able to help with that, that might be the easier route to go to ask how that should be booked. Answering some questions here. Sorry, I'm trying to sift through. The QuickBooks question, lots of good YouTube videos. That's a great suggestion as well, to Google YouTube videos on how to book that. If we are accepted for PPP but not yet funded, should I be nervous that I will lose acceptance? You can't resubmit at this point because they're not taking anything new. And I don't know, again, without having banking experience, I don't know if that's something that you can resubmit once you have a loan application in there. They've run out of funds with what they had set up for funding already, so I'm not sure what that process is going to look like. Somebody just said, our banker said that it will take 10 days for the PPP money. So yeah, I mean, everybody, I think it's natural to be nervous. I think everybody that's applying for this is nervous at this point. But again, like somebody just said here, it could take up to 10 days to get that funded. So I would just keep looking, be on the lookout. If you have a great relationship with your banker, it might be something you could ask them as well. Let's see, I kind of scrolled through some questions. Lots of QuickBooks stuff, I just don't know. A question on the 100,000. Yeah. I would reach out to your CPA if you happen to have a good relationship with your CPA on that. I've actually heard conflicting information on that one. That's a really great question. The question was, do we need to cap the salary paid to an employee with PPP funds at 100,000 annual, or will it cover and be forgiven if we pay some employees their full salary? Again, I've heard conflicting information on that. I've got clients that are resuming, they're paying them their full salary, even if it's over 100K. So definitely check with your CPA specifically, I would say. Is it your understanding that the EIDL loans are truly a loan and therefore must be paid back? That's a great question. We have a really good resource page I'm going to pull up really quick. The EIDL loans truly a loan. Let's. I don't know, Karen. I don't know if any of your team knows on the EIDL loans if they're truly a loan. It must be paid back.
That is my understanding, but. Okay. While they're distinct, while the EIDL and the Triple P are distinct loans, I mean, right. My understanding is that that is one area where you can apply for both, as well as it's just they have to be for distinct purposes.
Right.
So it's not like some of the tax credits where it's one or the other. You can do both idle and triple P as long as they're for distinct purposes. And the idle portion can be rolled into the triple P, but I do not have those details.
Yeah, I don't either. And I was just checking our resource page. And I don't have that answer either. My understanding is yes, but I don't know for certain. Okay, first 10,000 of the EIDL is their grant, the rest is a loan. Thank you for that, Gail.
That first 10,000 part, the federal guidance is sort of referring to it as the advance. So when you see that talked about as well.
Just to be clear, Mrs. Hunter, for that $10,000 advance too, that is, the advance is only going to folks on a $1,000 per head basis. So if you have 10 employees, that's how you get the full $10,000. If you're self-employed, it's unclear, but in theory, you would only get $1,000. So just to be certain, if you take out $25,000 on, or apply for a $25,000 loan with idle and you have no employees, don't assume that $15,000 is what you have to pay back. You're probably going to have to pay back the majority of that loan.
Right, right. Oh, okay. And Gail also said she received, let's see, I received a 10,000 idle loan on 4/14, applied for on 3/29, but the PPP had been accepted, not funded. The 10K will be deducted from the PPP loan if I get PPP. Okay. Any other questions that anybody can think of? I'm just scrolling through to make sure we haven't missed anything that I can answer. Oh, you're welcome.
If folks don't have any additional questions, then we can close out early. We've got Ashlee's contact information. I think this is the type of thing where, you know, unfortunately kind of have to go over the slides again, look at the additional guidance, because none of this was built in a way that's super easy or accessible. So just want to encourage folks to sort of continue this dialogue, continue to look for ongoing educational opportunities that we're offering at Good Business Colorado alongside our partners at Small Business Majority, the Bell, and all the other supporting partners. So we definitely are trying to keep up these sessions because we know the questions are ongoing. So before I kick it over to Jordan to sign off, Ashlee, looks like a couple other things have popped up, so wasn't sure if there's anything you wanted to touch on before we start wrapping up.
Yeah, I saw that. I was checking into, where did that one go? I heard the idle was not personally guaranteed. Is that true? As far as putting a personal guarantee on it, that is true. 10,000 per employee for full-time. My understanding is it is for full-time employees only, not the part-time. Let me check. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's full-time. I don't know if anybody else has heard whether it's for part-time employees as well, but our understanding is it's just for full-time employees. Only full-time, yeah. Perfect. Yeah, so I think, like Karen said, if anybody has any specific questions, I'd be happy to, you can reach out to me via email or phone. I'd be happy to address those as they come in as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Ashlee. We really appreciate it. And just want to say thank you again to all of our co-sponsors and co-hosts for today's session: Small Business Majority, the Bell Policy Center, Adelante Community Development, Colorado Black Chamber of Commerce, Colorado LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce, Center for Community Wealth Building, Downtown Grand Junction, Latino Chamber of Commerce of Pueblo, Rocky Mountain Employee Ownership Center, SistaBiz Global Network. Thanks again, everybody, for attending. And again, we'll be shooting off a follow-up email with a link to the presentation, as well as the live Q&A session. And if you'd like to learn more about any of our partner organizations or sign up for their email lists, you can do so through that email. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Monday.
Thanks all.